Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is a teaser for the introductory paper I'm going to read here, The Celestial Sphere in Ancient Egypt. Right, so let me go ahead and get into it one time. The ancient universe was confined with an infinite spherical shell. The stars were fixed to this shell and thus were all equ- equidistant from the Earth, which was at the center of the spherical universe. The simple this simple model is in many ways a use as useful as it was in antiquity. It helps us to easily understand the diurnal and annual motion of stars, and more important, to proceed these motions in a relatively simple way. Therefore, we will assume for the time being that all the stars are located on the surface of an enormous sphere, and that we are at its center because the radius of this celestial sphere is practically infinite. We can negotiate the efforts due to the changing position of the observer caused by the rotation and orbital motion of the Earth. H. Katunen et al., Fundamental Astrology, Berlin, Springer Verlag, 1994, page 15. The Celestial Sphere in Ancient Egypt by Troy D. Allen, Mario Beatty, Greg K. Carr, Valitha Watkins. Apparently, it's written in French and English, so let's deal with the English abstract. The Celestial Sphere in Ancient Egypt. In reading the introductory hymn to the sun god of Ra, the Papyrus of Ani, attention of authors was immediately attracted to the Egyptian word. I'm gonna go for it here. Pa said ja. Neither of the major dictionaries of the ancient Egyptian language, Lascaux 1982, Faulkner 1991, and the Wörterbuch of Ehrman and Grappo 1926, has this word with the determinative of the sun. In this paper, they show that it is an astrological term which means the celestial sphere. Introduction. Although Egyptian astro- astronomical contributions to civilizations such as calendar making and astrological prognostication are widely acknowledged, there still exists a prevalent belief that the Egyptians had little to say in the realm of astronomy. In order to engage Egyptian knowledge of astronomy, the Book of the Dead, or more precisely, the Book of the Coming Forth by Day, in the new edition translated by Raymond Faulkner, 1994, is essential reading in reading the introductory hymn to the sun god in the Papyrus of Ani. Our attention was immediately attracted by a very important question. By a very important question indeed. The first sentence of the introductory hymn dealt obviously with the celestial sphere. Though focusing on the celestial sphere, we introduce critical aspects of Egyptian astronomy as they have been attributed by Egyptians themselves. In doing so, we seek to illuminate the small but significant part of the map of the terrain of Egyptian astronomy that will help facilitate more descriptive scientific exploration into Egyptian knowledge. Before presenting and explaining the Egyptian text, let us recall the meaning of the celestial sphere in modern astrology. The celestial sphere and its defining components. The celestial sphere is the imaginary sphere surrounding the earth in which all heavenly bodies are projected. It is, so to speak, the vault of the sky as it appears to be spread above us. The celestial sphere of stars surrounds the earth on every side. In the daytime, we cannot see the stars because of the superior light of the sun. As the earth rotates, the celestial poles seem to remain stationary while the rest of the sky moves around because the celestial sphere is divided into two equal hemispheres by the celestial equator. One half of the celestial sphere is constantly visible to us, which is dependent upon the observer's position on Earth. If the observer is north of the equator, the south celestial pole cannot be seen, as it always stays below the horizon. Similarly, observers south of the equator can now see the north celestial pole on the surface of the celestial sphere, which is concave. The three primary circles that are imagined are crucial to an understanding of the more common problems of astronomy: the celestial horizon, the celestial equator, and the ecliptic. The celestial horizon is a great circle defined by the intersection of a plane perpendicular to the plumb line and the celestial sphere. This alone may be thought of as passing through the observer or through the center of the earth. This visible horizon is usually 2 or 3 degrees above the true one. This can be determined easily by timing the rising and setting of heavenly bodies such as the rising sun. In addition, level but rolling country, one must be on the top of a hill to see the sun rising or set. The astronomer usually defines the place of the horizon with the surface of Mercury, which by physical laws must be a level surface. The celestial sphere, an introductory hymn to the sun god Ra. Dua, which is right here. Ra. Kafet, which is right here. Waben. M. Aket. Abayit, that is here. Neat. Pet. In. Wasir. Praising Ra when he rises in the eastern horizon of the sky by Osiris the dead. Sesh. Atepu. And Necheru. And Necheru. Neb. Wu. Ani, the scribe of the divine offerings of all the gods, Ani. Now that we have dealt with defining and description of the celestial sphere, and it's now that we have dealt with the definition and the description of the celestial sphere and its composition, let us embark on examining the astronomical content of the introductory hymn to the sun god Ra. The Egyptians knew quite well the life-giving power of the sun, Ra. Thus they did worship Dua and the sun Ra as a god Ra. In addition, they knew the sun's motion from east, left to west, right. Indeed, all stars on the celestial sphere rotate from east to west, and the sun is the day star. The celestial sphere is the blue vault of the sky. Now, this is Pet here, as it appears to be spread above us. The celestial horizon, the great circle defined by the intersection of a plane perpendicular to the plumb line, and the celestial sphere is clearly defined in this text. Kafet, which is right here. Waben, this is Waben. F, M, Aket, Fabit, Nitpet. When he, the sun god, rises in the eastern horizon of the sky. This reference of the eastern horizon, Aket, Iabiet, of the sky, Pet, suggests that this is a clear astronomical observation that represents Egyptian knowledge of the celestial horizon. Hence, they obviously knew of one of the imaginary circles projecting onto the celestial sphere. Of course, the Egyptians also knew the visible horizon because they had drawn it as follows. Aket. This is one way to do it, another way to do it, and another way to do it. The visible horizon is the line where the earth and the sky seem to meet. On land, it is regular, sun rising over mountains. Thus, the precise meaning of Aket is the place in the sky, Pet, when the sun rises, Waben, and the earth, see the mountain here, and the sky seem to meet. The Egyptian astronomers must have been on top of a hill to see the sun disk in order to calculate the time of the true sunrise. So here is Aket again. The sunrise is still within the land. This is Ta. That is, the sun is ready to appear on the horizon. Aket. The sunrise is 2 or 3 degrees above the level of the visible horizon. It seems that Egyptian astronomers possess the knowledge of a full horizon system dealing with the celestial sphere. Because of the knowledge of both the celestial and visible horizon, implicate implicit in the knowledge of the celestial horizon is the knowledge of the celestial sphere. But to provide further concrete evidence for the Egyptian astronomical observation of the celestial sphere becomes necessary to precisely show what the Egyptian called the celestial sphere. So Ha, Iket, so Ket, Wa, Waben, Ket, Pasej, Mut, Ket. You rise and shine on the back of your mother, the sky. From our textual analysis of the introductory hymn to the sun god, the celestial spirit was called Pasej Wu, Pasej by the Egyptians. Pasej Wu, Pasej means back or spine, and the determinative generally denotes meaning dealing with the sun or time. Of course, the determinative provides us with the precise sense of how the forming sun signs should be defined and described. If Pasej, back or spine, was a question of anatomy, the determinative would be this: a piece of flesh. The back or spine is not to be taken literally in the passage. Indeed, the Egyptian use of two determinatives, one being the backbone and ribs, and the other the sun, suggests that they themselves do not want Pasej, back, to be taken literally. In this passage, Pasej is used metaphorically by the Egyptian to veil an astronomical observation. This is not a question of anatomy, it is a question of astronomy. Indeed, the astronomical meaning of Pasej in this passage is the celestial sphere. The heavenly bodies are seen against the blue vault of the sky in the celestial sphere. This sphere is a sphere of stars shining, and the sun symbolizes all stars. One half of the celestial sphere against which the stars are seen is consistently visible to us. The surface of the celestial sphere is concave, and Egyptian astronomers use the image of back of a bent woman to convey this discussion. Numerous scholars have posed a built-in skepticism concerning the Egyptian scientific innovation, particularly when it comes to a field of scientific inquiry, such as astronomy. Distorted scholarship becomes a consequence of the ideological position of many of the chroniclers of Egyptian civilization. Neither the major dictionaries of the Egyptian language written by Ehrman and Grapple 1926, Lesko 1982, and Faulkner 1991 have the word presage with the determinative of the sun that represents the term the Egyptians equated with the celestial sphere. Budge 1898 did correctly replicate the word presage, determinative of the sun, in his translation of the Papyrus of Ani, but he wrongly translated the passage as "Thou risest up in the sky, illuminating thy mother Nut," which does not speak of the specific meaning, the celestial spirit, but because the writing of this word presage does not exist in any dictionary, it is our responsibility to assert that the meaning of this word will be placed in any future editions of dictionaries on the Egyptian language. Although publicizing our findings would be a major step forward, it should be accompanied by a re examination of what is considered historical evidence by ancient Egyptian astronomy and an inclination to ask new questions about the language. This introductory hymn to the sun god in the Papyrus of Ani was not only shows the notion of the celestial sphere existed in Egyptian civilization, it also is an indication that this papyrus must have been written by an Egyptian astronomer, even as our findings contribute to the study of classical African civilization. We must begin to further research Egyptian civilization from the inside and begin to open our minds to see that we can reassess the theological constraints of many interpretations of these historical sources as we receive a sense of historical identity, awareness, and continuity from classical African civilizations. Our history and cultural tradition dem- demand that we scholarly engage them scientifically. Says the bibliography. Budge, E. A. Wallace, 1898, The Book of the Dead. Chapters of Coming Forth by Day, London, England. Budge, E. A. Wallace, 1990, The Book of the Dead, The Chapters of Coming Forth by Day. Ehrman, Adolf, and Graham. The Word of Bush, there. Egyptian, Faulkner R.A.O., A Concise Dictionary of Middle Egyptian. Faulkner R.O., The Book of the Dead, Coming Forth by Day. Lesko Leonard R. Dictionary of Late Egyptian. I definitely have this Faulkner. I have the Faulkner Dictionary. Definitely, I have the Book of the Dead by Faulkner. I have Lascaux. So I think what I'm going to do is go through some of these things a little later after I finish with this. So let's see how much more we have to go. The Celestial Sphere in ancient Egypt. Starry Vault, Polaris, Earth, North Pole, South Pole region. The Celestial Sphere. They show you the Celestial Sphere here. Celestial equator, ecliptic sun, vernal equinox. Right. The Celestial Sphere, right? So this is, I don't know what, this is in French, so I'm not exactly sure what this is. But we've come to the end of our presentation. So thank you so much for your attention, ladies and gentlemen. I will go through some of these sources and read the quotes most definitely. So, ladies and gentlemen, have a blessed and wonderful evening.